Hit it, cowboy. Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to 40k Thursday. That's right, it's ladies' night, and I'm joined by my good friend, Nikolai Pert. Hello, Nick.
Hey, Rowboat. How's it going?
I'm good, thanks very much for asking. Especially excited to be talking to everyone live on Twitch. I'm very excited to see you guys. I'd also like to shout out to the YouTube community. Big
Oh,
shout out
yes.
to Hoops, who left a really good comment yesterday. This is my new thing. I'm going to shout out someone who leaves a good comment at the beginning of the show. And I'd also like to shout out our most recent podcast reviewer, McCluskey, who left us a 5-star
McCluskey.
review, which I was very happy about. We've
Oh,
actually,
thank you very much, McCluskey.
yeah, so big love to all you guys. But of course, everyone on those Wargamer Patreon, but mainly to the Twitch chat.
Yeah.
Well, no, mainly to I can't decide. Probably Patreon because they actually make it
Who's
so
your
I can
favorite?
riff.
Who's your favorite subset of people, Rob? Patreon guys, Twitch guys, YouTube guys, podcast nerds, or people you meet randomly in hobby shops. Bear in mind that the Twitch chat are here watching you now live.
It's actually a gangbang of all of them. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
one room. That's why. That's why. So, hello to those people: Hermanista, O'Reaper, Wargamer Dad, K Dread, yes. MJ Pegasus, also yes. And you know, Nick, fuck you, buddy. That's the real answer.
Fuck
In
you
that
too.
yeah, fuck you too. And also, Datcom, thanks for subscribing.
Ah,
Datcom turned up today, and
DC.
DC. It's been a while since we've seen a bit of Datcom, so it's nice to see him. The subject of today's show, obviously me and Nick are going to talk about the hobby that we've been doing recently and some 40k news. Our regular show host will talk about why he's not here, Mr. Tom Layton. But the answer may surprise you. Tune in. Answer 7 may surprise you.
Find out in 50 minutes after some ad breaks.
Yeah. And then the main topic of today's show is thanks to the Twitch chat from earlier today. Because we've kind of been having a conversation about Space Marines and how that they are the worst army to invest in. And we've had some more information on that actually just this afternoon. And so we're going to have and what we mean by investing is we called it Frugal Warhammer. But effectively what I'm saying is if you're going to invest in a Warhammer 40,000 army, where's your money best spent? Or what strategy can you use to best employ it? That's going to be the conversation later. I'm quite excited about that, Nick. Are you?
Yeah, it's a subject that is close to my heart because it's generally my philosophy for collecting Warhammer in general.
What did you actually say to me earlier, like in our message? Your specific sentence.
Oh God, I can't remember.
It was quite good. It was like, if there's someone who's not going to spend money on Games Workshop products, it'll be me, or something like that. Thanks to Nubgood for subscribing.
Yeah, I'm as tight as I can get with Warhammer, and I know it, or something like that.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so I'm hoping to get some good tips off Nick, but also just to have a good chat with everyone else as we talk about these things. Because I think actually with 9th edition just kicking off, it's a real good conversation to have, right?
Yeah, definitely, particularly with this is the third wave of Primaris Marines, and I'm sure they'll feature in our conversations about Space Marines in particular.
They will. They will. I think we should probably go through each of the factions and make a decision, yes or no. But Arkarai, thanks for suggesting me to hydrate. I'd like to remind everyone to stay hydrated. I've also got my Stay Hydrated T-shirt on today. There we go. Which I'm
Nice.
very happy to have, actually. Right, but before that, news, Nick. The 40k news. News. So we had the FAQs come out earlier in the week, specifically for things like Engine War and Saga of the Beast. Mike Gazgul is very happy that he can run in charge now.
Yeah, that's good news. But also, they giveth and taketh away with the custom force field.
They do. As is Orcs tradition at this stage. And there's a variety of other things that came out, but not anything terrible. I don't think there was anyone bleating and moaning particularly about the FAQs. Some of it was clarity, some of it was stuff left unclear, right?
Well, I know Tom wasn't very happy with some of the FAQ because they took away. Well, they confirmed that I think the Thousand Suns and Grey Knights have lost psychic focus.
Yes, they have.
So they can no longer smite spam better than everyone else.
And do you know why Tom was particularly aggrieved by that?
So he says that it basically shoehorns Grey Knight players into one particular great style of playing just big blocks of paladins, by taking away the incentive to MSU, so you can have lots of little squads doing smites. Now you're more forced to just have two big blocks of paladins, stack all the buffs on them, and sit in the middle of a board on objectives. I don't really know whether that's true or not, because I've never played Green Knights. I've only ever played against the new Green Knights once, but I didn't like the fact that they could have 24-inch range smites, flat 2 damage, and just spam it. It was just over the top damage, in my opinion. So I'm glad that has changed from that point of view. But maybe it would have been better if we just changed the flat 2 damage smites instead. Change that to something else, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think what Tom is talking about, and I think it's a good conversation to always have, and it will actually factor into our conversation later about armies and where they're at, is the internal parity of the book. In the, do you have a range of units that you can or can't take in the book, and should, and we've talked about this on the show before. Are some units in that role for doing a certain job? And taking psychic focus away means the army plays in a different way, and maybe they only now play in a mono way, which I could definitely see being really frustrating and upsetting, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I know, because Tom's only recently sort of like invested more into his Grey Knights, and he's taken a lot of time trying to paint them up nicely. So maybe he just felt they hit a little bit more because he was excited to play them a certain way, and now they've changed the rules, making the army play differently. So
and therefore he has to invest time and money, maybe, but time at least, in getting his army to the standard he thinks it needs to be to play with, which is frustrating. Yeah. Which is kind of we could have, it definitely is going to inform our conversation later, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's
I was going to say, yeah, definitely.
It's a good one. Also, some hot meta news, Nick.
Ooh.
Hot meta news that I want to quickly talk to you about in a minute.
Okay.
Also, any questions in the Twitch chat? Big Neil, big love to you, Neil. And it was fine. I sort of hated playing against Grey Knights, 20 Paladins, plus 6 characters spamming smites, says Datcom. Plus the Pally build also benefited massively from Psychic Focus. So yeah, that's gone away. So now this is a direct quote from my good friend and lovely fella, Mr. Peter Colossimo Falcone. Oh, Big Goldfish, thanks for subscribing. Oh, ledge, love that guy. But the wait, and Edith Knight says, I was excited to play my Tau, but now I have to spend almost $1,000 on Taunar. That would be upsetting. I sold mine just before 9th edition. And now who's a mug, Nick?
Well, it paid for a couple of laptops that we needed for the tech, so
yes,
it's gone to a good cause.
That was part of the WTC fund, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Basically,
liquidating some of those assets.
Yeah, Nick came round and stole at least like 4 boxes of my Warhammer, and I don't mean like little boxes like shoe boxes. I mean like 50-litre really useful boxes.
200 litres worth of Warhammer that I've been trying to liquidate into tech monies.
Yeah, into tech monies. That was for when the WTC was going to be on. But next year it's all applicable for the Super Series, right? So that works.
Yeah.
So some meta news is good friend Peter has said that he feels 40k may be broken. Now
really?
I'm misquoting him now.
Okay.
But I'll. Oh,
40k is definitely broken.
Well, let me explain why.
The Falcon said the 40k is definitely broken, 100% broken.
That's the name of the show.
Can't believe he said that.
Yeah, just like Val on Tuesday said he demands an apology for 40k for the 40k app. More on that later. So what he's talking about is sorry about that, everyone. We've had this conversation on the show actually for a few weeks, haven't we? Where we've been talking about scoring the primary. It was the whole focus of our conversation last week, scoring the primary. And one of the good things that you brought up in the Demon book was talking about Nurglings.
That was Dick, actually. Well,
Oh,
I started about Nurgle, and then Dick reminded me that Nurglings exist and
and they
that they're
scout.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's been a couple of without loads of tournaments to really take any information out of. Um, it's really been down to live stream games and practice games to see. And there's a couple of Nurgle builds knocking around, which just runs 90 plague bearers, Nick, and a bunch of Nurglings at the front. Throws the
Yeah.
Nurglings forward, so they're scouting, so you can't get past them onto the objectives turn one. Then they just
Yeah.
plonk down 90 plague bearers on the objectives and just laugh in resilience.
Mm,
Mm, mm.
yeah. I mean, one of Tom's mates, Scott's been playing a very similar list like that before in 8th edition, and he had some pretty good results. I think he won one of the games which up GTs, and he always did quite well at the tournaments he went to. I don't think it wasn't like a always 5 wins out of 5 list. It was probably pretty solid 4-1. But if the conditions were right, he could do really well, and that's kind of how he played. Which just doesn't do any damage. It just moves and is ridiculously resilient. So yeah, I'm not surprised that kind of build is going to be doing well in this edition, particularly with the addition of the Nurglings. I think the counter is obviously if you can fly, but not everything flies. And if we're looking at the meta right now, most of it's going to be Space Marines, and with the exception of things like Impulsors or like Smash Captains, a lot of it's infantry based, isn't it? So it's going to struggle against that.
It really is. And then the other version of that, I think, or the most common version that I can think of, is obviously things such as all of the Phobos Marines.
Yeah, yeah, because they all like scout deploy, kind of like Nurglings. And what I like now about the You Go I Go deployment, because before when it was I deploy everything, you could completely counter someone's infiltrating stuff by deploying first and putting your scouts out, and then there was no room for their scouts. But with the alternating deployment, if you've both got scouts, it's whoever goes first is going to block off a certain portion of the mid table. And yeah, similar to Nurglings, like Phobos infiltrating units are going to be good at just pushing opponents back. Kind of like last week how we talked about using boys with the jump to just sort of make a net in front of someone's army to stop them going places.
Mm-hmm.
But these units do that before the game even begins, so that's pretty strong.
Yeah, they win at deployment effectively.
Yeah, yeah.
So kind of fascinating, and I think it's just a good. I think it's a good conversation for everyone to have, or at least us to kind of reveal at the top of the show, because I think that is some big news. We've talked about it a lot. How do people break the game? It's always really important. Sometimes we spend hours on it. I'm not saying the game is broken in any way, shape, or form.
No, Peter's saying that, the Falcon.
I'm also not saying Peter said it. But it's an interesting conversation. So ask yourself in your new 40k armies what you could do about it and how you would try to tackle that challenge, right? Nick, you got any thoughts for yourself?
There's a chaos.
I
don't really know. I guess the chain cannons and things like that. Well, I think Chaos have enough answers to delete Nurglings. It's not an issue, like killing Nurglings. It's just the fact that they hold you back. I think my current Chaos build could beat Plague Bearers because the Noise Marine bomb. I don't think people are calling it a Noise Marine bomb, but the Noise Marine unit is incredibly good at output. It's all flat damage too, mostly, so it will rinse quite a lot of Plague Bearers. Haven't done the maths on it, but I know on average it does 30 wounds to a knight, so I'm sure it could do quite a lot of damage to Plague Bearers. But it's still not solving the issue of getting onto those objectives. So maybe combat is better. Maybe loads of Khorne Berserkers would be better because they can charge in, fight twice. So even with fighting twice, if you're not killing anything, as long as you get the charge, you can pile in and consolidate that 3 to get extra 6-inch movements each time, and maybe even fight 3 times just to get onto those objectives. I've been playing at the minute. Orcs, I think Orcs would really struggle against that. They'd get there eventually, but I think with the missions how they are now, if you can score enough early, kind of how it is in Age of Sigmar. If you score enough early in the early game and the mid game, and you just hold someone off in the late game, then as long as you score enough points to win, then yeah, you're good. So that type of list just does that really well.
Well, so yeah, I think that you're going to need to like clear those things out, and actually, that's not the easiest thing to do. And whatever
Plague
you're,
Bearers, no. Nurglings are easy, but they're not necessarily designed to be hard to get rid of. They're just there to be the initial speed bump. Plague Bearers are a slightly different story, but
I agree with your statement. I think it's going to be combat. Combat's going to be the way. You're going to run forward, and you need to clear them out in combat because then you're also on the objective. But it's what combat you have, or maybe a combination of a bit of shooting plus a bit of combat. But you also have to get there, right? And the problem is with those Nurglings, they're pushing you back X amount of distance from where those Plague Bearer blocks are. But the Phobos stuff doing it as well. Like Phobos is like there's a lot of tough Phobos units, right? And then a bunch of Marine sound objectives behind. Anyway, good little hot tip for you guys as we go through. The other thing to talk about, Nick, before we get on to some not positive news, but some very positive news. Super positive news. Best news I can possibly deliver to the 40k community is the Honest Wargamer objective markers are available now for 40k.
They are. Yeah, they're pretty swish. I've ordered myself some. I didn't waste any time. I got my pre-orders in. They look really nice.
Yeah, they
and they're not just a massive advert on the table, which a lot of other podcasts and other people have sold them, and they just like a big mouse mat with someone's logo on. Doesn't look very nice. It just detracts from the table. Doesn't look very good, but these ones are nice and clear. So when they're actually on the table, they look fantastic on like the standard like fat mat style tables, and just make seeing objectives and playing objectives much easier.
Well, so the important thing to note. Someone grab the link. If someone in the chat could grab the link, that'd be great. I forgot to do that before the show, which is dumb. Are the markers £39 per month? No, they're not. I actually don't know the price, but and the 50mm will get the fuck out.
You can subscribe to get the them for $3.99 a month, can't you? The objectives.
Yeah, there you go. Everyone in the chat has put the link in. Now, what they are is very much like the Age of Sigmar ones. So the biggest problem, like Nick has brought up, when you have the kind of mouse mat material, normally they've got some sort of fucking brand banged all over them. So these ones are see-through, so you can see the mat underneath a lot better. And so like it's not meant to be a lot less immersive, like a lot more immersive. It's quite good because actually the Age of Sigmar ones are pretty massive because there's a really big area of like holding that you can get in Age of Sigmar because it's 6 inches from the center. But in this, it's just 40mm from the center. And we also learned something from the Age of Sigmar ones, right, where we didn't have a cross in the middle for exactly where they're meant to be. And now these ones are just like the 40mm objective that you need to be on. And they're quite nice because you just stand the models on and you're like, I know where I'm at now. I found that quite useful.
Yeah, it just saves a lot of measuring time.
Or you can just find yourself 6 40mm bases. Because obviously this is Frugal Hammer Nick, so we've got to make sure that we do that. You can just find yourself 6
MDF bases. Cost about £1 on eBay.
See, this is where you're the Frugal expert, because I was already going to get some Games Workshop bases, but they're more expensive.
Yeah, no way. You could probably get 40mm bases. You probably get like, I don't know, 30 for like £2 on eBay.
There you go. You can get 30 objective markers off eBay for £2, but ours are nice. That's all I've got, and they're functional, and they're as cheap as we can make them, because they can be fairly expensive to make. Yeah. So they're as cheap as we can make them.
But I think kind of Carriage made a good point in the chat. Hopefully, because obviously Games Workshop have their own objective markers that they've released, but they're on 50mm bases, which was hilarious. Even though the game they've made is 40mm bases, but it'd be really annoying if Games Workshop later said, "Oh, actually, FAQ'd it that the objectives are 50mm to match their own products."
So we've got something to deal with that, because that's why they're on pre-order. So we're just waiting for that FAQ. Waiting for that FAQ. Because James was like, let's order them now. And I was like, no, let's hold on. Because the problem is which product do they invalidate? Do they invalidate the book and chapter approved that says 40 million, or do they invalidate their bases for their objective marker set? So
Yeah.
now the right decision is the objective marker set, but this is Games Workshop, and so we don't know what the actual answer is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think movement trays are a must now in 40k? I don't think they're a must, but I think they could be really useful for keeping 2-inch coherency if you really wanted to. You
Depends what
can
army you're playing. I
Huh?
played Orcs yesterday, and I wouldn't play a game without moving trays with Orcs. Ever.
Yeah. 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 I think that's really useful. Grab a model on a 40mm base, place it on the sheet of A4 paper, draw around the base 6 times, cut them in, job done. There you go, easy. Then you can explain why you're playing with 5 bits of paper on your table. Yeah, that's not very immersive, eh, Nick?
No, but it's cheap.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, there are cheap ways to do it, but there are some really nice objective markers available from us as well if you would like to do that. So I think it's a nice thing, right?
Yeah, can I? Because we're talking about Frugal Hammer, and I know we just talked about the Honest Wargamer product that's been released today. But if people think it's too expensive, they want to make their own. What I did was, for previously they're the wrong size now, but for just before the 9th edition dropped, I made my own clear objective markers using. So I went onto Word. I made a 6-inch circle on Word with a black outline. Printed that piece of paper out, cut round it, then cut round the inside. So I just had a black outline, 6 inches. Laminated that, and then cut round the circle. So then I just had like a 6-inch round disc, and it works exactly the same as the ones that we're selling, but not as nice. Didn't look anywhere near as nice.
But still, the Frugal Hammer, that's what we're here for.
That's a frugal option for people.
It's a frugal option.
There you go.
Yeah, and we're pushing that today. That's our thing.
Yeah.
So that's some great news that they're out. We've been sat on them for a while since even the leaks came out, but we wanted to confirm it was definitely going to be 40mm. And I'm pretty certain it is going to be 40mm. But like Neil says in the chat, 40mm is only the recommended size, the board size. So it could be anything.
The GT size, it could be anything.
Yeah. Primaris says, I can't believe I built those objectives without even noticing they were too big, talking about the Games Workshop ones. Do the missions have ABC objectives on the missions? No, but there are a bunch of tokens that go along with them, so that they're translatable. There's some fancy looking tokens on the site as well. Go look on the site. That's enough of the advertising. But also, please do go look on the site. And they're a nice product. And if you really want to support the show, it's a nice way of supporting the show, but also getting something out of it, which is great.
Yeah.
Now, other news is the 40k app. We already have talked about this before. Although, Nick, it's come out since we last did the show.
It has.
Okay. And then the roadmap, which has come out yesterday, has come out. Now, I'd like to clarify this before we go any further, in that both me and Nick have already been on the show. I did a show on Saturday with John, where we went through it and we talked about the positives, as well as the negatives. We referred everyone to the Goonhammer article. It's been a lot of I think, fair and constructive analysis of the app from us.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been enough just piss-anti rage about it, Nick. And I know you're pissed about it, and I'm pissed about it, yeah? And I wondered if you wanted to join me in just mocking some idiots for doing a shit job.
Yeah, I'm all up for a bit of mockery.
I'm in. How shit is it?
Well, I don't want to mince my words, Rob.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I offend anyone by saying this, but it's a load of old tosh. I didn't want to have to use the T word, but they forced me to by releasing such a substandard product.
It reminds me of the guy that was clearly smoking on the Hindenburg, yeah? And they were like, this stuff explodes. He's like, no problem. I got this. It's disastrous. It's like bombing Pearl Harbor. It's like invading Russia in the winter. That's 2 different World War II references, Nick, just for you.
Thank you. They went straight over my head.
You don't know about the invasion of Russia?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on. What have you got? I would like to hear everyone else's thoughts.
God, it's like the new Coke.
That's a good one. That's an
when
old
they brought
one.
the new Coke out, and everyone went, "Ah, fuck that, bring back the
Yeah,
old Coke."
that's positive. It
Um,
is a pile of steaming shit. Its UI is bad. Its interface is bad. You have to subscribe externally for
yeah,
the
you have
stuff.
to subscribe just to see how shit it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And I
and it's
think. Go on,
it's got
after you.
so much stuff wrong. Like the other day, I was like, oh, looking at orc lists. I was like, I'll because I thought I'll try the app, like how I would generally use it, just to more testing of it to see how user friendly it is and how good it is. Just like in my general, scheming lists routine and looking up information rather than looking at my codex or whatever like that. I'll try the app. And I was like, orcs. Okay, let's look at some orc stratagems. I know there's like a snake bite one where you +1 to wound to vehicles. I was like, okay, let's have a look at that again just to check the wording and see how many CP it is. And it said it was 3 CP. And I was like, oh god, you can't build an army around that. Can't build an army around that. And I was like, I double checked in the codex and it's 1 CP. So it's just bad information out there, putting people off buying stuff and doing things in the hobby.
Oh, well, there's the roadmap, which we need to talk about in a minute, because they've heard us loud and clear in fish ears, bunny ears. Sorry. Let me see some other stuff. There's also been some, and I mean top level shitty opinions out there on the internet from fellow content creators. Big love to you all. I know you're just doing your job, and sometimes, because you do lick a boot, you have to continue to lick a boot. Yeah, but your tongue must feel rough at this point, licking that
Yeah.
40k app boot because it sucks. I've seen people like Dude Day saying you need to sign up and pay for it, otherwise G-dubs won't fix it. What
Yeah.
the fuck is that as a piece of
Yeah,
logic?
that doesn't make any sense. It's like the stock market. If a company's doing really badly, people don't go, oh, you know what? Let's buy loads more shares to make the company do better. People they sell the shares because the company's not doing very well. Isn't that how it works? I mean,
That's how it
I'm no
works.
stock market analyst, but I'm pretty sure that's basically how it works. So like what? So like you don't go to a phone shop and go, oh, I want a new phone, please. And the salesman goes, oh, here's a phone, right? It's not very good right now, but in about a year, once all the bugs in the program and in the software and the OS system, it's all been sorted out, and in a year it's going to be good. But pay for it now, so when you're ready in a year's time when it's going to be good. Like,
Yeah.
who does that? Like, it's the same with this app. Like, why, if it's so bad now, why would people tell other people to buy it? That's really bad advice. I don't understand why
Because
people
they have
do
got
that.
an entire Games Workshop boot in their mouth,
Yeah.
blocking their other thoughts. Yeah, they're
Just
like,
pushing on that nerve in their brain.
just
Like,
find it out. Just find it out. It can't hear you through that boot that's in your mouth. Yeah, I also got slob all over my fingers during that. In terrible, terrible community leadership I'm seeing all around the yard. And it's gross. It's awful. Stop. If you see someone going, yeah, just be like, fuck off. Like, this is shit opinion. It's shit. And the most important part is Battlescribe updated. So we don't need
yes.
it. You don't
Yeah,
need it.
Theo Wag in the chat definitely called it. Yeah, the hero that we all deserve, Battlescribe, came to the rescue like fucking Superman. So we can all actually write lists.
I've written so many lists. So many
Yeah,
lists. With more
so
battle
many
wagons
lists.
than I would have wanted. A lot of battle wagons in my lists.
Really?
A lot of battle wagons, yeah. Yeah. The app gave my Dark Matter Crystal 12-inch range, then the app stopped working. Still charged, though. Of course it did. This is the other thing about it. This is
For a
the
brief
other thing
time, the
about
Emperor's
it.
Children had a 3+ invulnerable save chapter tactic. I tried to organise a game that day, but no one wanted to play.
Yeah. Also give all of the money, obviously, to the Battlescribe developers. Never. Even if you just do it once,
Yeah.
give them £4 once.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and Wahapedia, sorry, the one-man show, says he will have everything updated for 9th by next weekend at the latest. There you go, which is a searchable database. A searchable database of the information, which isn't a long list of shit.
Games Workshop said they'll have a quick reference guide in their app.
Let's talk about the roadmap, Nick. Let's talk about the roadmap. That is
Can
like
we,
someone
we just
ringing
talk about
me.
the Surge thing? Okay.
Oh, what's the search thing?
Well, the search thing is rubbish because basically, if you want to search for something, you have to know the exact wording of the name of, like if it's a stratagem, you have to know the name of the stratagem. You can't just like search for like +1 to wound for plague bearers or something like that. You have to know the name of the stratagem, which seems a bit like, what's the point in having a search function for that? Yeah, you can search for data slates or whatever, but stratagems, it's pretty useless. And warlord traits, pretty useless for that.
Yeah, agreed. This is what I think that they need to do with the roadmap, is they need to put it like on their kind of like, not on their phone obviously because they wouldn't know how to do that, but print it out. They probably are able to do that. Take their roadmap and then use that roadmap to drive the dev team. Not the guys who are working on it, because they're probably like young actual UI experts who can do actual jobs, but the management that allowed this to happen, and drive them. Just drive them to a seaside town, like one that's kind of like predominantly old people. Buy them some fish and chips, because everyone deserves fish and chips, no matter how bad your day is. Sit them, let them look out over the sea, and then just kind of like slowly let them know that they're some of the worst people in human history. Now, I know that's hyperbolic because there are people who've committed genocide and there's some other stuff. So obviously I don't actually mean that, but leave the YouTube comment rage below because I'd love to see it. And just let them know that they probably will never be loved. That's another thing I'd like them to be told. But gently, not in a horrible way, just
like
calmly.
in a card. So like leave them a card which just sort of gently explains that. Maybe like a poem and a picture. Maybe like a bouquet of flowers, and then just leave them there, drive away, and then get a new manager.
Just do that. Just leave them there, or it'd be like the scene of The Sopranos where they're taking the lady out to the trees, to put them all on a bus to Bournemouth. I like that MJ Pixis doesn't even want to drive them himself. He's just like, just put them on a bus and send them off and leave them there. I downloaded the 40k app on my iPad. It doesn't even have the full iPad support. Now, the important part about the roadmap is they've told us that they're going to do a bunch of things, in order to improve, because they've heard us loud and clear, which is Games Workshop way of not apologising. Yeah, they say, we've heard
that's really annoying.
Go on, Nick, this is all yours.
I just fucking apologise. Just like admit that you did a bad job and you fucked up. That'll win so many hearts back. If you just say, yeah, we made a mess of this and we're going to do better. We're sorry. Not like, it's just like a politician answer, isn't it? Like, what was it? Like there was something like a British politician said recently where they asked the politician, like a reporter asked a politician to apologise about something, and she said, "I'm sorry that you feel that we did something wrong." Like,
I'd like everyone to know that's also how I apologise.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, just apologise. Say, yeah, it was a shit. It wasn't very good. We shouldn't have released it, but we're gonna make massive improvements to it. Rather than just saying we're going to improve it. Because they're kind of spinning it as, oh, we're so great at taking feedback and improving things. Aren't we amazing at improving things? Like,
no, it's shit. So I've been doing the Super Series pack, right? Yeah, and I got it into a workable format. Big shout out to Colonel Cabbage doing a load of like proofreading for me today. I sent that out to some of the people who are going to be involved in it, and I got some more questions, which I also did some clarity. So I'm already on my third iteration of the pack, not including my own personal, like, change this, change that, my own read-throughs, right? So I've had already 3 sets of external eyes on the thing, and then redone elements of it and kept adding stuff in, or making it a little bit better. And this is, the Super Series is probably, like, the most important thing that I'm going to do. Like, I've been working to it for a long time, so I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. Like, we're working super hard on it. It's going to be great. Can't wait to do the 40k version as well, obviously. But you just do a good job at the start, and that's the problem with the roadmap. Again, I know we're going on one here, but the problem with the roadmap is we say we're going to do these things, but you already said you were going to make a great fucking app, and you didn't. You didn't just make a great fucking app. You made a terrible, terrible fucking app. Didn't apologize for it, and then you tell us you can do this other shit. But the thing about the free month, which, again, people with a taste of leather in their mouth are going to talk about, isn't it good that Games Workshop have said you can have a free month? No, it's not. Because they had the fucking audacity to charge when it was shit. They were like, listen, we know this is shit, give us £4. Yeah? Like they had the balls to do that, and then they've gone, do you know what, everyone? Fair enough. It's free for a month. So you can sign in, and we can get your data. That's cool. Thanks for doing that. Get your My Warhammer thing. That's rad. But also, if you've already subscribed, which you probably already did, because if you're now subscribing because it's free, yeah, anyway. And then they had the feedback on Monday from the fact that it was shit. And then 4 days later, they're like, do you know what? It's still workable enough. We'll launch it on iPhones. Like, they were like, why does anyone trust them to do a good job? The guy in charge is an idiot. I don't know who you are personally, and I want you to know that I think that you're an idiot. I think that you're morally bankrupt because you are happy to put a consumer product on the market which is not fit for purpose and then expect people to charge. The problem with this community as well is this community is full of loving, kind fucking people who are obsessed with Warhammer. Games Workshop are like, here's a cup. And they're like, I bought them all. I bought all 10 cups. It's a Games Workshop cup. Yeah? Right? And the Games Workshop know that. I've been inside that company. I know that they know that. And they're happy to put a substandard product out.
Yeah, there's a lot of consumer faith in there. Almost blind faith at times.
Which is fine. Because you love a thing.
Yeah, because we're all super passionate about the hobby. But like, I think that they should have just refunded everyone who subscribed. Like, I think there's a lot of people.
They didn't do that.
Because I think there's a lot of people through the Apple. I think you can make some sort of complaint and maybe get your money back. But I did it like on the day of release. And I've no idea like if you can even get the money back that way. Probably not. But I think as a gesture of goodwill, because they released such a rubbish product, they should have sort of refunded everyone.
Agreed. I agree. Free until fixed. But what do we mean by fixed anyway? Nick, I was kind of hoping you'd jump in with me more there. I listened to someone rant about it today, and I was like, I'm gonna have this later because I'm feeling the same. But when I was listening to it, I was like, it's just one guy alone, and the other guy was kind of a bit awkward. He was like, oh, you're being a bit over the top there.
Well, I'm just taking the awkward dude's position.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's quite right to make your feelings very well known about the app. And I'm very, very concerned with community members who are being very defensive about it and also I know Sir Callum is in the chat, and I know that he was quite happy with what it was, which was a bunch of free rules, and that is good, right? That there's a bunch of like free rules.
Yes, if it's free, though. Like paying, I don't know. Well, the free rules. Do you mean like the data slates? Because I think could you not see them anyway, or do you have to sign up to see the data slates?
You had to sign up and pay originally to pay the data slates.
Yeah.
So that wasn't.
I mean, yeah, the rules are free, but like there's been so many examples that they're wrong. So they're free, but they're all wrong. Not all of them. Some bits here and there. So that's just Yeah.
They're just fucking muppets, and I'm gonna call it now. And I've been really constructive recently, past few weeks. But I just can't be arsed today. I just think that they're idiots and they're mugs. Yeah, and I might just start calling some people out on Twitter as well if you keep being a dickhead about it, because you need calling out about it, I think. Because also when you build trust as a content creator, this is really important. When you build trust, someone might be like, oh, yeah, you know what, he makes a fair point, or maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. You make people doubt their reality for something that's objectively fucking awful. Fuck those guys.
Maybe this app is good.
Yeah, maybe it's good, and I don't understand.
Maybe that stratagem is 3CP. Maybe my chapter trait is a 3+ invulnerable save.
Yeah. And in any other industry, they'd apologise. There's like a Japanese CEO, I think it was Nintendo. They fucked up on a launch, and then the guy just took a pay cut. He's like, I'm not going to lay anyone off, I'm going to take a pay cut. And I know we're talking now a lot about capitalism and like corporate structures and stuff, yeah? But it's just a bang out of order company doing a bang out of order thing, and someone needs to call them on it. End of
Yeah, like if a football team gets relegated, usually the manager gets sacked.
Why has no one been sacked? Why didn't they say, we fired this guy? Because he approved this. Where's that conversation? Anyway. Good.
They need to do what they do at Bobo events and just like get the Nerf guns out or the water pistols, get the manager out in the Warhammer World car park. And everyone who subscribed to the app originally is invited to Warhammer World to Nerf gun, water pistol, and throw sponges at the dude and that should be his punishment. And then he's demoted to be one of the army painters or something.
Right? Although actually, that's quite a good job, the armor painting. Um, yeah. Well,
Well, I
anyway,
presume that's where he got promoted from in the first place.
no way. That's I think that's
To be an
definitely
app manager. That's the career path, isn't it, in Games Workshop? Staff member, manager of the shop, army painter, CEO.
I'm gonna say, because it's really hard not to like get into a really poor conversation with these regards. I'm gonna say that he hired them from the content creator pool. That way, I'm attacking my own self, so no one can be an issue with that. That's what they've done, Nick. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. Okay, right. Okay, on to the. I think that's all the news. Also, unsubscribe. That's really important. Unsubscribe.
Yeah,
Tell people
I
to
unsubscribed
unsubscribe.
immediately.
Remind people to unsubscribe. Unsubscribe to the Age of Sigmar app, and subscribe to the apps that are good. Like, I've always paid for Battlescribe. Like, once a year, subscribe to Battlescribe because it's what you should do.
Yeah, if you went to a Warhammer tournament that was shit, do you go back next year?
No.
Exactly. So why are all these content creators saying, "Oh, it's a shit app," but just buy it anyway?
Everyone is now saying that it's all a smokescreen and I indeed designed the app. Let me tell you, if I designed the app, it would somehow be worse. But I would never hire me to design the app because I'm not a fucking app designer. Nor would I hire anyway, right. So, the main point of today's show, which we got to at 46 minutes, so I'm proud of us. And if you have been turned off by that rant, I apologise. I just think someone needed to have it.
It's cathartic.
It is cathartic. It is, so, let's talk about Frugal Warhammer. And let's talk about like why Frugal Warhammer might be a thing, Nick, if that's okay. One of the issues that you can get in 40k and Age of Sigmar, especially Games Workshop games, we talked about this. If you're new, you might hear a lot of terms about the release cycle. See, the problem is I never think we actually get new people watching the show, so like I do worry about these sometimes. Everyone will be like, yeah, we know about this, Rob, but anyway. So if you're new, you get the release cycle, and that means a new book is coming out, let's say, because we know Necrons and Space Marines are coming out. And what that means is at least the points might change, the rules might change, and also the power level, and mean their effectiveness in the game, if you're playing either matched or tournament play, might change. Now, some things might get better, and some things might get worse. The problem with that is sometimes games of 40k or Age of Sigmar or any tabletop game is a bit of razor's edge of what you take, this or that, in some cases. Now, that's not always the case, but sometimes it's like, a little points difference means something is like very, not irrelevant, but, it's not really as effective.
Or a change from a 4+ invulnerable save to a 5+ invulnerable save.
It makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a 2-up invulnerable save to a 3-up invulnerable save, right? So that is a really important thing to talk about. Now, one of the things that we don't often talk about much as a community, I don't think anyway, is which ones of the armies might best sustain or deal with those changes as we see them, and which is a safer army to buy into with your money. And with new 9th edition, you obviously want to get started with new 9th edition, right? And be involved. So you might think, I want to pick up this army, I want to pick up that army. So I thought we'd go through that element today. Are there any other problems, Nick, that I think I'm trying to, like, I think that's the main problem, right?
Yeah, so I think, new additions, rules changes, FAQs, nerfing models or armies, power creep. I think that's the main problem, isn't it? I think a really good example is Marines, because obviously when 8th edition dropped, Primaris became a thing, and slowly over time, Primaris range as a whole is putting to rest the old Marines. We're starting to see the newer. So almost the entire Space Marine range has been made obsolete now, because you've got new tactical Marines in Intercessors. You've got new scouts in like the Eliminators and the Phobos stuff. You've got all the new characters now. You've got the new Rhino. You've got the new Land Raider in the Impulsor and the Repulsors. And now we're starting to see the new Predators with the they're called Gladiator tanks.
Yeah.
And we've got the new bikes now. We've got the new attack bike. We've got the new land speeders. So all of that stuff that's going to come out is going to be 100% is going to be cheaper, more points efficient and better than old Marines.
Yes.
So you're entire. So if you've been playing Marines for years, you've basically got to start again. If you want to, if you want to have a more competitive army, if you're just playing casual with your mates, it doesn't fucking matter. Playing Crusade, it doesn't matter, does it?
Is that not true? Like, because this is something. So, Color Cabbage has made me say several times on the show, and I think it's a really fair distinction. Is the difference between tournament play and match play. And when you're doing match play, even if it's a mess around, like if you stuck a bunch of Primaris versus a bunch of Tacticals, yeah, Primaris would kick their dick in all day, right? So it's all well and good saying if you're just having a mess around, it's fine, but it's also not fine because you're just losing because you've got models. Like you own stuff that's bad, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that, and you're like, I like this stuff. You're like, yeah, but that stuff's bad. It's like, well, that sucks. That's a terrible time. I don't want to be a part of that process. So yeah, but I think you make some good points. Like the Marines are a good one. So what I thought we'd do is we'd go through the different books, and we'd try to analyze or give our idea of what of whether or not they're a good investment or a bad investment to play 40k. Right now, obviously, there's the other thing to talk about, and this is really important, is that there will all be 9th edition codexes coming out. And that means that this isn't very evergreen as a conversation because we already know there's a new Marine book and we already know there's a new Necron book. But we're not really going to be talking about the competitiveness of the army. It's more an ability of an army or the models that you buy for that army to survive their usefulness. Survive like FAQs or new books, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Let's go through them, shall we, Nick? Well, the first one is obviously Space Marines. It's obviously the first one, right?
It's always the first.
Always the first.
Even when they have a codex a year ago, they're going to get a new one very soon.
And a load of codex supplements. So if I was new to 40k, I would never if I could give advice to anyone getting into 40k, it would be not to collect Marines.
I think yes, if we're assuming that they're going to be, if they're going to be like us, if they're going to be a lifer, get into the Warhammer life, then maybe not Marines isn't the one. I know it's Age of Sigmar related, but James of James Workshop, when he started bought his first army, he went for Sigmarines, Stormcast.
Yeah.
And within a year. He bought basically the starter box a couple of times, and within a year it was all invalidated, and he never uses those models ever again.
Yeah,
so it's kind of a Marine example.
Yeah, and I guess the difference is like tactical Marines, obviously, as you're talking about with all the other stuff. But you could have, but 2 years ago, bought a new Predator or 3 Predators to use the kill shot stratagem as an example. Yeah. And then there's definitely, those gladiators are definitely going to have a kill shot style stratagem. And they're just like Nick says, going to be better, right? So there's a thing there in that...
Yeah, they'll have an invulnerable save. There'll be probably similar points. They can fly, so they can go over buildings. Yeah, this is going to be better.
Well, so one of the things that I saw today, which is a bit of the news, as well, is apparently there are going to be some heavy intercessors.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
So there's been some pictures of the kind of codexes, not leaked. Like Games Workshop have showed off some of those pictures, and one of the the sections in there has been about heavy intercessors. So heavy intercessors will replace intercessors, right? Unless you can just it's about getting so many intercessors on the board that you're getting like a wounds versus points conversation. So that means now, but literally 2 weeks ago, I'd have been like, buy a bunch of intercessors and spam them, and you'll have a great time playing 40k. But now they're being replaced, and they're not.
Yeah, our intercessors, the liberators of 40k.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So,
because liberators have just been superseded by a different Stormcast troop. in almost exactly the same fashion, if this is the case.
Yeah, it is. Well, it might be. Is the answer?
Yeah.
Is the answer? But then also, like, if you collected repulsors, like, the new tanks can be better than the repulsors, or like different. They were traditionally just used as gun platforms. They weren't really used as transports. So Marines is bottom of the pile. Also, problem with Marines is, this is really important, is if I have blue Marines, I have to confess to everyone every time I'm not using the rules for the blue Marines.
Mm.
Like I'm like, actually, these really like the white Marines special rules. I just
Yeah.
prefer blue. I like playing like the white Marines, but I prefer looking like the blue Marines. Yeah. Um. So there's some good analogies I can make there, but I don't think any of them are safe for TV. Yeah. So, there are pictures of heavy intercessors. Okay, I haven't seen those yet.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. Is
Oh,
there any
so they've got
faction that's
Gravis
not?
armor and bigger bolters.
Okay.
Mm.
They're more a dev team replacement. Okay, but you guys get my point, right? The Codex Marine players make up their own chapters so they can choose tactics at will. Yes. And that's the other piece of advice. So, Frugal Warhammer advice. Nick, after you.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Just make your color scheme as generic as possible. So even if you liked blue, you could just go for like a different accent color. So don't go blue and yellow. Go blue and something else. So you can say, oh, it's my own custom chapter. Make it as generic as possible, so you can play whatever tactic you want, and no one can have any issue with you. No, you can't go to any tournament and they go, they're actually Ultramarines. Well, actually they're Nikos Marines in this chapter today. So my Marines are bronze, and they've been Salamanders, they've been Iron Hands, they've been Emperor's Children, they've been Red Corsairs, they've been Alpha Legion, they've been I've said Salamanders. So they've been all of those at least so far. Although they are actually painted like the Minotaur Legion, but they don't have any rules, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And another thing, another type of army that I know we're sort of trying to focus on different books, but I think it's kind of relevant at this point. Is I really like armies that are. So my Marines can be Imperium or Chaos, because I'm just using Legionnaire Marines. So I can kind of justify that they'd be Chaos Legionnaires or just normal Marines. And my Rhinos are they're just Rhinos, but they can be Chaos. Same for all my tanks and my Dreadnoughts. They swing both ways. Different. So it doesn't matter for Demon Princes, they're dedicated to Chaos, because obviously Marines don't have Demon Princes. But all my characters are all generic as well. Like my captains, they all work for Chaos and Imperium. My lieutenants, like my Banner dude, my Psychers, they all go both ways. So I'm doubling my money with that army. I've not got a whole Space Marine army and then a whole Chaos Space Marine army. I've got like a 2-for-1. And so I love armies like that, and there's quite a few good examples out there. Like Brad Glover, I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but he's got an army which is Orc themed and Tyranid themed. So they're all conversions of Orcs and Gene Stealers and Tyranids. So I'm sure you could play it as Orcs or as Gene Stealer cults. So he's got double his money there. I think there's like a Orc Necron army. I've never actually seen it, but I've heard about it. And I'm sure there's loads of other examples where people have just made a dual army, which can be both. I think there's some others.
I think you could do that. There's an option, the dual army, like Nick's talking about. But if you do want those like Blade Guard veterans or those those new bikers or the Eradicators, you're buying Marines. But those Eradicators, I'm sure, will be replaced by the Heavy Intercessors or something similar. Like maybe they stand still and fire twice, whatever the fuck they do. So I think Marines.
Yeah, and I think the new Primaris Marines, you can't really do the dual army with them, but with Chaos, just because they're kind of Chaos and Marines used to be much closer in their playstyle, the model set. It used to be just Marines and then spiky Marines with spiky Predators or spiky Rhinos. But now they're diverging a lot more now. Um, Marines are going in this new direction, in this new aesthetic they've got with like grav vehicles and different types of armor and weapons. And Chaos seem to be going still spiky Marines, but I reckon there'll be more like possessed style models and demon engine style models in the newer lines that we'll see in the futures, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree
So
with that.
it's gonna get more difficult to do a dual army for Marines, I think.
Yeah. So, and I think they're doing that on purpose, right? Because they want you to push into it. Question from Codex: how much confidence do you have in their new Space Marine Codex being balanced? Because we know that the first two codexes for 9th edition are going to be Space Marines and Necrons. Considering the lead time in book writing that must have been writing this codex before the last codex was even released, that probably makes sense. They probably released the last Space Marine Codex and then started writing this one almost immediately. Is how I mean, a lot. I expect a fucking lot of it to be copy and paste, like a lot of it to be copy and paste.
Yeah, it'll just be most of it copy and paste, and they'll have updated all the the doctrines and stuff like that, the FAQ'd and errated, things like that. They'll all be updated, and it'll just be the new data sheets in there, maybe some new relics, a couple of extra stratagems. It won't be loads different, but I don't necessarily have that much confidence that it will be balanced just because of past form and other products.
However, you can't guarantee what's going to be good. Like, you can't predict that meta. You can't say it's definitely going to be those new models because they released the Phobos stuff, and I don't think I saw a lot of people play with it. But they're good now, you know. So you really can't see, and it's really funny because the best unit that you could take in Marines for a long time at the beginning of the year was a Forge World unit, like in that big dreadnought. So
Yeah,
they couldn't have planned that because they wouldn't have wanted that to happen.
no,
Okay, so that's Marines. I think don't buy Marines is what I'm saying. Also, you have to buy a new book every 4 years, Codex supplements, Vigilus
yeah,
detachment books. Like, if you're a Marine player, you've had to buy a shit ton of material just to get your additional rules, right?
yeah. That's a good point. They're definitely the army that's going to have the highest rate of new models coming out and the highest frequency of newer models and books, definitely. Um, a point I'd like to say on Marines, and it kind of applies to every army as well. I would say for Frugal Hammer, never ever buy the character models.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like the chaplain model, the captain model, the librarians, lieutenants, and things like that. I would never buy them and never do because they're like £20 for a model. Obviously, if you really love that model, you got the cash, buy it if it's cool and you like it. But from a Frugal Hammer point of view, I never buy character models because they're always way more costly than anything else. I always just make my own characters. So you can get an intercessor, you can give him a fancy hat, you can give him a sword or a power fist, and he's your captain or your lieutenant. You can get an intercessor, you can get a little robe, put it on him, give him a stick with a skull on, and there's your chaplain. Or same for your librarian. So I always think make your own characters. It's cooler and more meaningful for you that way to have converted your own characters anyway. I think you probably get a bit more invested in them. But that's just another way I tend to sort of save money on armies.
Yeah, I guess that's right. If you buy like 4 or 5 characters, it's nearly £100,
Mm,
depending on the situation. I mean, I'm looking at my awesome Plague Marines now and the characters I've been painting up for my Death Guard, and they're all
mm,
really cool. But I do have two. Well, I don't know what they're called. Biologist putrefiers, I think. I've got 2 of these, and it's only
mm.
thanks to the guys in the chat who sent me them. So that's the only reason I've got them. But they're identical. And also, that's kind of lame that they're identical. I wish I'd done some
Yeah,
converting or something. But at some point, I could have just had one and just built something that was the other, or tried something, right? Um, the Royal Mail is in the chat. That's pretty amazing.
Royal Mail,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah. I'm thinking though is that you're giving Games Workshop evil mastermind planning regarding codexes and all, and they can release a fucking working out. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying that they're evil masterminds. It's not the case. I'm not saying they're intentionally releasing new books or new models to invalidate your old ones. They have no concept, which is why I brought up the dreadnought. It's not the Contempt dreadnought, is it? It's
For the Leviathan.
the Leviathan dreadnought. So like that's a Forge World model, so it's a Citadel product, so Games Workshop product that Forge World have made the money off of. So head swaps, Rob, head swaps. Okay, yeah. You just do head swaps. That's the way to make things a bit better. A unit of 10 Intercessors plus big upgrade sprue costs like $5 more than 2 Primaris characters. You can just make 4 characters and 6 Intercessors spare. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, good point.
Really great tip there, Nick. Really great tip there. I need to make some Demon Princes and Nurgle. And if you'd have listened to the show earlier today, because I want to run more Tier 3 Demon Princes, I think that would be badass.
Yeah, Demon Princes are actually a bit more challenging, I think, to make yourself because they're generally a bigger size, aren't they? I have made my own Demon Princes, but the bodies are kind of more. The bodies are marine size, but I just put robes on them. I put them on a bigger base, and I put them floating above with big wings to try and make the stature a bit bigger. But I would like to have, because generally the Demon Prince will have like bigger scale armor and limbs and things like that. But I don't know what you could base them on. I think it's not cheap. I was just about to say like Obliterators would make a cool Demon Prince scale model, but that's not cheap either.
Well, I've got a bunch of thankfully Nurgle-ish monsters. I've actually got some Dragon Ogres, and I reckon I reckon I can make a kick-ass Demon Prince out of a Dragon Ogre.
Yeah, definitely.
I made my last batch of Demon Princes using a box of Ogres and the bodies and base. There you go. So there's definitely some options.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Like, don't even just look at your own range. Like, look at other ranges of models, or even other manufacturers. But like, if you just look in Games Workshop internally, like the Fantasy range, Age of Sigmar range, got loads of cool models.
Can I just talk about Tom Whitbrook's fantastic kind of like fall into despair in the chat? Because he said, and I think it's a good point as well. Problem with the color scheme, I think for Marines, is that the Frugal Hammer own chapter makes so much sense, but I'm too into the lore, and it's like really good point. You're super obsessed with salamanders, so you do them all green. And then he put, but I would never decide a colour scheme anyway, so the point is basically moot.
Grey plastic it is.
Neil Kerr, I have seen the Creature Caster Demons. I talked about them already today, but they're obviously expensive, and we're talking about Frugal Hammer, right? But Creature Caster, like if you had the money, you can just go buy all the alternative options, and I would encourage people to do so because there's some sweet. I would never buy 3 Demon Princes from Games Workshop ever again. That's just I'm just giving them money for making shit models. Crypt Flyers.
We don't give them money for making shit things, do we?
No, Community. We don't. Community. We don't.
We take money from them.
That's what we do. We give our money to someone else. Yeah, we give our money to someone else. Right. Okay. So the maybe the best. Nick, I'm going to leave this to you. Army that you could potentially buy in Frugal Hammer is Demons of Chaos.
Yes. Yeah, definitely, because you can play Age of Sigmar as well if you want. Multiple systems, and they're much easier to convert or make. Like if you're not playing at a Games Workshop store, Games Workshop events, you can like. So my bloodletters are really old school beastmen that I just painted red. They're from, I don't know what kit they're from. They're from years ago. They're all mono pose. So they're red goat men with axes as bloodletters, but they also work as Zangors if I want to use them as Zangors.
And you've used them as bloodletters on the Games Workshop stream at a tournament.
I have, yes.
There you go. So they weren't too bothered. Did they actually? Were they like, "Oh, this is super cool"?
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, they're old school models. They're really nice." So yes, they were into it. Stream guys.
There you go. Not into the tactics, obviously.
They didn't understand the tactics.
So demons are. Right, hold on, before I go any further. Demons are a very good option of things to buy because you can use them in 2 game systems. Now, how effective they are in both game systems is a great conversation. Some people think very effective, some people think not effective, depending on the game system, depending on which of the 4 Chaos Gods you're talking about specifically. So loads of kind of like ums and ahs, really.
Nurgle is generally always good, I would
Yes.
say.
Yes. Whereas Khorne is usually shit.
Corn is usually not good. Look, Bloodthirsters just haven't been good in a long time, which is frustrating because they're really cool. And they don't seem to get that much love though, do they?
No.
Like the last codex, the codex that they had for 8th edition was
Terrible.
A pamphlet. Was they barely gave any attention. Like each god got 3 stratagems, and they were like identical. One was a banner upgrade. One was like a character thing, and then one was something for the core troop unit. All sort of in similar veins, but god specific. And they got a load of generic ones. They got some spells and stuff, but that was about it. And then the Psychic Awakening, they barely got anything good in that either. So they don't seem to get the love that Marines get. And you can understand that from a point of view, because Marines are the poster child, and no one's going to get as much attention as the Marines. But
you would at least think that they would get a full codex.
Yes.
For 4 different army ranges at once.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and there's loads of models there.
But you can do some really good conversions, like Nick was saying. And if you wanted to do a bunch of Demon Princes, you could kit bash some models. You can always buy Nurglings and kind of like cut them in half and have like 2 bases of Nurglings out of 1. Sometimes more. You know, just put 1 Nurgling on a particularly fancy looking plinth.
You just get 1 Nurgling, 1 base, green stuff. Make one of those, roll it up into like a big long sausage, curl it up like a big turd. Put the Nurgling on top of the big turd, and that's a Nurgling base.
Perfect. Do that 800 times.
Yeah. I think so. I upset the Age of Sigmar community at one tournament by making my own demons. So I made a Tzeentch demon army out of green stuff and drawing pins and bases. So it's like a floating eyeball army. So if you got I got like a base, I got like a pin board drawing pin. It's got a sphere on top of the pin. Put it in the base, and I green stuffed a pupil and then 2 eyelids that covered the whole thing to make a floating eyeball. Did that 30 times, and then I made some chariots out of like bases, which I put eyeballs on, and then I got like a Christmas decoration bauble. Put some Lord of the Rings eagle wings on it, and some wired legs, and then green stuffed around that. I made a whole demon army, and it cost me, I want to say, £50 in total, and they're just labour. So you can make your own demon army.
There you go.
And someone once also more upset the Age of Sigmar community by making demons out of a bucket of bugs. I don't know if you were around for that.
But Haristo's a criminal. That's what we need to remember. Like he's not an actual criminal. I think he's actually got a doctorate, but probably in something useless. This is less Frugal Hammer, more Blue Peter things to make and do. Agreed. Okay, so you can always make anything. Is probably a key part we should touch on all the time. Yes. But Demon's not a bad investment, only they have a problem with their effectiveness in the game often. Mm-hmm. Bloodletters are a thing. The Knicks use them as bloodletter bombs. I think maybe Flamers might be a thing, but we'll have to see.
They are a stable army though. So like we touched on with Marines, they're going to get updates quite a lot, new models quite a lot that might invalidate your collection. Mm-hmm. Demons are less likely for that to happen, so your collection can be stable for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Nick. So over the past 4 years, so it started with Khorne, but actually mainly through the Age of Sigmar range, they've updated all of the Tzeentch demons, or not Tzeentch demons, sorry, the Chaos demons over the past 4 years. So it started out with Khorne, we had the Bloodletters, and we had the dogs. Actually, they're a bit more recent. and some of those demon elements. Then we had Tzeentch, we had the new Lords of Change, and we had all of those new models as well, with Zangor as well. And then we had the new Nurgle stuff, and then we we got Beast of Chaos and all the new Great Unclean Ones and all that. So they're actually also fairly new, which should be part of the conversation. And then they did all the Slaanesh stuff recently. So they're also really new models as well. So that means that they're not going to be... they'll be updated rules-wise, but models-wise, they're less likely to be invalidated for a very significant time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then somebody made a highly competitive AOS list with a box of alligators. Did they? Who was that? True, their core codex is still old, and both points and strats and doctrines are outdated even now. So we would expect. Oh, we should do this like a stock market, Nick. We would expect demons to maybe get a power boost when their codex comes out because their old one sucks. So buy.
But yeah, we need a big red button. Smash that button. Buy.
Okay, so that's demons, and that is Marines. And the Marines that we're talking about is all flavor of Marines, obviously. Obviously, if you want to collect just Blood Angels, par exemplar, I would only ever collect I would only ever buy like the Blood Angel specific stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like Death Company. I wouldn't buy like 10 Intercessors intentionally for Blood Angels. I would just paint up 10 in a color scheme.
Well, again, if you just went, I'm a successor chapter of Blood Angels, you could, because my friend Andy, he's got Blood Angels, but he started off with just a generic Marine army that he's done his generic colour scheme on, but then he's playing Blood Angels now, and all he's done is gone, I've got Sanguinary Guard. You can see him actually on my background. He's made Sanguinary Guard out of Reavers and jump packs. He's painted them gold. They're clearly Sanguinary Guard. And then he's made Death Company with jump packs out of Reavers. They're clearly Death Company because they're painted like that, but he's used cool new models. But then the rest of his army doesn't look like Blood Angels. They're just a generic thing. So those units, particularly in Blood Angels, you can make them look like Blood Angels, but the rest of your army doesn't have to be Blood Angels. So then, if you just want to play Iron Hands, the rest of your army is Iron Hands.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Good tips. So that's obviously everything else. That's all those. So next up, Adeptus Custodies. They are, I would say, a good Frugal Hammer army because they don't have a lot of models, which is great. So you haven't got to spend a lot of time and money in it. How effective they're going to be in the game could change, up or down. But the core elements are there, and they're fairly cheap to buy because they're super elite. So like when you spend whatever money you spend on 3 bikes, like you don't have to spend triple that on Orc Boys, as an example.
The pound per point ratio is probably pretty good
sweet
for these guys.
Yeah, pretty sweet on the Custodies, and you can collect basically a whole range until you start getting into really silly, dumb forward world planes and stuff. You can collect it for fairly cheap, which is fun. Also,
do they have a start collecting box set?
Custodies.
I think that's another point for like Frugal Hammer, like basing an army. If you're going to start an army, if you can base an army around multiple start collecting box sets to make a bulk buy saving, that's always pretty good as well.
Yeah, but also don't get Marines. Is the first bit.
No, don't get Marines.
Don't get Marines. There are demon start collecting boxes, but so that's kind of cool if you want to go along that route. But I don't think that there is a Custodies one.
No.
And it's also, MJ Pegasus makes a good point, it's also super cheap to paint up Custodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gold spray.
Gold spray, baby. Yeah. So I would say that Custodies is actually a really positive one for... and also you can complete the collection quite nicely, quite quickly, and then you can just be done, and it can sit on the shelf.
But that's dangerous because as soon as you've completed the collection, you're like, I need another collection now.
Well, I mean, there's also the really expensive fly you can buy for like 300 quid, so, you could go that far, but not a test if that's the standard to put on yourself and others, just limit your opponents. Okay, start collecting box Custodies would be a full army. It says, imagine finishing one collection before starting another, Nick. Imagine.
Fools.
Okay, so next up is the Adeptus Mechanicus. So interestingly, so they've just had a whole new model range. Good news.
Yeah.
They just had their engine war last, which I think means their codex will be really far away,
Yes.
which is kind of good. They do though have a lot of stuff that's a bit shitty in the Mechanica stuff. Like they've got like not everything, and the start collecting box is fine, but you never want like 30 Skatari. You know, like sometimes you do, but like that'll be max. So the start collecting boxes are fine. I'm just taking the lead on this one. But they don't have a lot of like the units are what they are. So like a big Castellan robot is a Castellan robot, and a Cataphoron destroyer is a Cataphoron destroyer. It's not, and they're not very character heavy, so you can't really save any money that way. It's you have to buy the tanks and the units as they are, pretty much. And there's also a whole bunch of new stuff out, and some of that new stuff is quite good. So, like as a Mechanicus player, I feel like I need some of the new units. So I feel like I'm on that kind of like purchasing run to get competitive. So maybe you could invest in them now, but a lot of it isn't great. Not a lot of it. Some of it isn't great.
But like if their codex is a long way off, they've had some new stuff out, they like to be good for a while. Now will be the time to buy, won't it? Because you can, if you're investing in a new army now, I'd make maybe a good one to choose because you can buy the efficient units that are out now and not have to worry about buying all the other stuff that isn't so good.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's true. And also the efficient units are like kind of like so the transports they're really valuable, and being able to take the transports means you can transport anything in the future, which is good.
Yeah.
So it really depends on where those things go, but some of it can be very expensive. Like a unit of 12 Cataphoron destroyers is a lot of money,
Yeah.
but it's not
How like
tons of
how many is three?
like 35 quid or something.
Okay. Yeah.
So like you're spending a lot. So that's like £140 unit. But it's a big unit as well. It's a big unit as well. So the tanks are good for Admech, but boy, do they cost dollar when people take 8 of them. See, that's the other thing as well. They're expensive. The new flyer is £60, and you can take 3 variants of it. So if you max that out for units you can use in match play, that's 270 quid just on the flyers. You could potentially use, which is a bunch of cash.
I think is the flyer kit. Is it a multi-part kit where you can build each flyer from the same kit?
Yeah.
Because I think a good Frugal hammer point is magnetization. So
Oh, good point.
build a plane, but magnetize the different options so you can pivot to whatever plane you want to use at the time. Like I've done that with my Orc planes. I've magnetized them so I can swap them from super shooter boys to the burner bombers or the other variants. I know Tom Wallace, his Gene Stealer cult army, he's magnetized every single weapon on every infantry guy, so you can swap every single weapon out, which must have been an absolute chore to do
But
that.
it saved him loads of money because now he's
Yeah,
just
so plasma guns, whatever, I don't know, flamers go up in points, and the mining laser is better. Swap it to a mining laser. Not have to buy and build a whole new one or chop up your models to do so. Or burner bombers get cheaper. Put that on the table.
Yeah, well, so apparently the flyers are all magnetizable, so there's a good option as well.
Brilliant.
Also
Because
saves you time painting.
Yes. Yeah, and you don't have to have 9 of them. You just have 3. One thing that Games Workshop did recently, which really annoyed me, was the Knight Castellan box. They released, so it's basically the same kit, the Knight Castellan and the Knight Valiant. It's just the weapons are different, but they released 2 different boxes, so you couldn't buy one box and magnetize to have both.
Yep.
If you wanted both, and you were only buying through Games Workshop, unless you went to without going to like third-party bit sites or getting stuff 3D printed or making your own, you had to buy. If you wanted both, you had to buy 2 boxes, which I thought was ridiculous.
Yep.
Stupid.
Yeah. Well, they just it's the same big variant, but I guess that's true also for the Castellan, not the Castellan, the Cerastus Knights as well, where they you purchase in. But I feel like the Cerastus Knights are in a different. But maybe I'm a bit of a Forge World fanboy, so I'm just going to check myself there. But I think they're a bit of a different breed because I feel like they're not quite the cash grab that the large knights were. I still think that they look terrible. Still to this day, think that they're some of the worst models they put out. They've just got stocky shoulder pads, like they're 80s power, power executives just about to do some coke and eat some sushi. That's what they look like.
I like him.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? We all got different
Yeah.
what we like and don't
Yeah.
like. So Mechanicus might be one that's okay to buy into, but it's got quite a large range. But it's good that some of
Yeah, it does.
is...
So if you are a completionist, it's maybe not a good one to get into because you will want them all, just like the Pokemon.
That's true. It's true. Next up is Astra Tarum. I think that these guys are 100% getting a new model range sometime soon. And I think that they are also not a great army for Frugal Hammer because the tanks are like, if you're talking about pounds for points, you just buy a lot of tanks or you buy a lot of dudes. But either way, like, it's like, okay, now it's all mortars and I need 12 mortars. Okay, now it's all rattlings, I need to buy rattlings. Now it's all Bullgrins, I need to buy Bullgrins. It's just a lot of, you have to jump around a lot in that book, I think, to adapt to the meta. And I think you also have to jump around a lot depending on what's going to be good. And also, it's, like, pretty expensive, right? Like, am I going to go 3 super heavies, yes or no? Am I going to go for a horde of dudes? Like, it's not very... like, when you're playing Custodies, the question is really... Do I drop one Dreadnought for another Dreadnought, or do I drop some bikes for one Custodian Guard? Which is like, it's more of a disposition of roles, wherein this army, I think specifically, it's like, what build am I doing? And then you can't really... Sometimes you can plug elements in, but I think you're building a build or another build.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's easy to tinker with the Custodies, whereas it's not as easy to tinker with the Guard. You just need a lot more models to vary your list up. I think you could say you could make it easier to pivot with maybe just choosing your playstyle, going on just ignoring all the infantry. But I think you always need infantry, so that's silly. Magnetizing your tanks though, like we just talked about. I think chimeras with dudes in are going to be pretty good for this edition. But then hellhounds are quite good as well, so you could magnetize all your chimeras to be hellhounds as well if you wanted to. That's maybe a way to maximize your collection a little bit.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's hard to Frugal Hammer up though, right? Because like some of those elements are fairly interchangeable. I think that's why like you're quite
and their pound per point ratio isn't good.
No,
because I think 10 guardsmen are like 50 points or 50 points.
Yeah,
and it's £18. Whereas like Custodies.
Custodies. You're getting a lot more bang for your buck, really. Which I think is a problem. Which is why I've always argued that Horde armies should get, like, they should be just better in the game because you have to spend more money. Like, but whatever. Yeah, I think Astra Tarum a hard one, and for Frugal Hammer, and also I like the sculpts for the infantry squads are quite old. Even the Lehman Russes are fairly old. I mean, if you compare do Space Marines really need a third battle tank, or are there some different Lehman Russes on the way? Do you know what I mean? Like they're pretty old kits generally, the Astra Militarum stuff. So I think we could see some big upgrades for those guys soon. All the vehicles are pretty easy to magnetize though. That's an upside, says Final Cookie. So there you go. And also you can get some 3D... a Lehman Russ, like the difference between one Lehman Russ and another is really just the main turret gun. So you can just magnetize those and get some 3D prints of some other ones. And you can swap them around. Or you might just be able to do it yourself. Okay, Astra Militarum, are you buying or selling on that, Nick?
Sell.
Twitch chat. Buy or sell?
Sell that.
Sell that. So next up is... Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. Might as well do them both at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, Nick, you are the Knight expert. So what do you think?
Well, I think they're similar to Marines, and I've done exactly the same like I did with Marines. I have painted my Knights in a cool way that could be Chaos or Imperium, so you can use them as both. I've not put any Imperial symbols. I've mutated my Knights in a Nurgle fashion, or put a corn skull on it. So it's definitely not Imperium. I've just made them generic knights that look cool, so they can be both. I think they're a good Frugal Hammer army because you only need a couple of models. Like if a knight is £100 on average, you probably for an army you could spend £400 and you got an army that you can play with. It's always going to be roughly the same power level. You're not going to have to tinker with your list that much. You can magnetize all the arms to give you loads of different options on all the generic chassis. So I think it's probably a pretty good Frugal Hammer army for lots of those reasons. You don't need characters. You don't need to bother converting your characters. You just upgrade them with relics to make them characters. Yeah.
Once you've bought in, you're in, right? On the knights, like you don't have to add and it's not a particularly large model range. But it's fairly expensive, but once it's done, and it will probably stand the test of time. I don't know whether it will stand the test of time competitively, but it'll at least.
But they'll always be decent though. Knights, I don't think Knights would ever be shit. I don't think you'd ever go to a game and get absolutely stomped as Knights. I don't think you get that many feel bad moments as Knights. And well, maybe there'll be. I'm sure there'll be some games where an army you come against could potentially wipe you out in a round or two, but not very often. So.
Yeah, I also think. Well, I'm a little bit skeptical, not a little bit worried to advise for knights to be a thing. I also think they're really good for new people, obviously, because you can just pick up your army really quickly, learn your rules really well. They all have got basically the same movement and stats, so it's really easy to play as an army, a good drinking weekend army. But they've also sold like fucking hotcakes. And if we take the Marine analogy of they think people just want to keep buying Marines, so they release more Marines, and therefore people buy more Marines. Yeah, I think that we'll see loads more Knight models in the future.
Yeah, quite possibly.
So
yeah. I mean, yeah, they might bring the sort of Sarasa style knights into the plastic versions potentially,
yep.
or they'll just create their own knights again, like they did. Well, they'll just release their own versions like they did with the Castellan. But I think if we're looking from a completionist point of view, like I started off with a couple of knights, but now I think I've got 10. So it is a slippery slope, and it can be quite expensive if you're going to collect knights. But as just like if you're just an army, 4 knights is an army, and if you're quite happy with that, then it's a good army that you're always going to be able to get some good use out of.
Yeah. We just had a question in the chat from Machina. What do we think about the new Space Marine Codex? I haven't seen it all right now. I didn't know if the whole thing is out, so.
I don't know. I've not seen anything of it. So.
Why did knights cost less points than a stomper? Is a great question.
It is a great question because of injustice. That's why.
Yeah.
No other logical reason apart from that.
Next up, sorry, after you.
No, they just think because the Stomper's got 40 wounds that it's immensely powerful.
Yeah, because they're shit at their job. Let's break it down. So next up is Codex Craft Worlds. Craft World. So this is our Eldar. So this is specifically the good Eldar. Doing that in bunny ears. What do you think about good Eldar? Because there is an old model range, pretty much, and they've also started to.
If there was any model range, I would say don't buy yet. It would 100% be the old Eldar model range. That the Aspect Warriors. I know that the Howling Banshees have had new ones come out recently that are pretty nice, but again, they're really expensive. They're like 35 models for £35 for like 5 models or something ridiculous like that. They are crazy expensive. But rules wise, I don't know. Do they fluctuate quite as much as Marines? I'd say they're on a kind of similar rules fluctuation to Marines because Games Workshop find it really hard to make them kind of with Marines powerful enough to be good, but they're not shit. Because Eldar were kings of 8th edition for a good long while, and then they got nerfed, so they get hit by the nerf back probably as much as Marines or maybe more. So you might have to tinker with your lists. So you might have to change what's in your army quite a lot. So that's not necessarily good for Frugal Hammer.
But they've also got one of the oldest codexes. So I expect new codexes and an entire new model range sometime soon, right?
Hmm.
Well, that's what I think
Yeah,
anyway. I think
yeah,
you'll get that because they're so old now. They have to understand that, I think, and update that. So I think it's not a particularly good army to buy into right now.
no,
But it's been fairly stable and good, fairly stable for a long part of 8th edition.
hmm
So I still think
yeah,
it's maybe viable.
yeah, and like things like all the tanks and stuff like that. Like the Wave Serpent's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, I don't think. Fire Prism's relatively new, so those kind of tanks are quite safe if you're going to buy those models. Just the Aspect Warriors and the troops, like the Guardians, are pretty old. Um, like the jet bikes, Avatar of Cain, 100%. The metal one, that's like a million years old. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think I
the,
think
the
it.
yeah
Yeah, I think
the
it's
wraith
old.
stuff's updated. So that, all the wraith stuff and the tanks are pretty safe, but it's just the infantry and stuff like that I don't think's safe. Unless you're happy to buy all models. And actually, I think a Frugal Hammer point is like this army might be good to get into if unless you really want the new models. When the new models come out, demand for the old models will go down. So people might be selling them on eBay. So that's a good time to get those models quite cheap. So that could be a Frugal Hammer tip. I think.
Yeah, that is a good one. Especially if all they do is replace the models with new ones on the same base size. You could just pick up all the old ones for
Yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah,
That does,
or it could swing the other way, and old models become OOP, and the OOP tag out of production on eBay, and then for some reason that just makes the price skyrocket. So it's a difficult game to play sometimes.
it is. It is. So next up, well, we could cover all of the Eldar really quickly. So Jakari. I feel like Jakari had some very specific builds, like Talos, Grotesques, and Grotesques are super old models. Grotesques
Mm,
was so good in the last edition, but they were like the same monopose resin from Games Workshop, and no one bought them. Everyone used something else.
yeah,
They have to be the most proxied thing in 8th edition, I think.
mm.
Um,
Yeah. Like a lot of people using the Age of Sigmar ones. Can't remember what they're called. The Crypt
Crypt
Flares,
Horrors.
Crypt Horrors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that element needs an update fairly soon. Also, the Raiders are a bit old, I guess. And I think if
I think the Raid. I don't know. I think the Raiders are look okay still. I think. I don't think they'll be going anywhere anytime soon.
oh really?
Yeah, I think the Raiders and the Venoms, I think, are fine,
Okay, okay.
and their jet bikes are pretty sweet as well, and like the Hellions and stuff like that. I would say as a collection, bar grotesques, I'd say they're pretty safe investment for a good number of years.
Okay. It's interesting. I think the problem with the Dark Eldar stuff is that like some of it is that internally it's got three elements to the book, in that it's got like the witch covens, which didn't see a lot of play last edition, not overly. Then it's got kind of the homunculus covens, and then it has got the, ladies and gentlemen of the Twitch chat, the other raider.
Yeah, Cabalites. Is it called
Capitalize it.
Cabalite?
Is it?
Just waiting
Um,
for the
uh,
Twitch chat.
yeah, yeah. Come on, help us out.
Yeah, the other ones.
Um, Cabalites.
Cabalites. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Cabalites.
Nailed it. We did get it. We just weren't sure we got it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but they've got three elements to their book. So, like, which is kind of a little bit daunting, and they are three different model ranges, right? So it's a bit like Skaven, where you're like, oh, what am I going to collect? Like, am I going to go down this clan or this clan? In this case, which coven are you going to do? And they do interact a little bit, but they also, like, I feel like you're collecting one or, like, and sometimes one might be better than the other. They also have a different play style. Yeah, also €21 for one grotesque. No one's doing that.
Wow.
And they're still what they were before, right? Grotesques. They're still 4-up invulnerable save, like melee monsters. So they
Yeah.
might be viable in the game. Just don't buy the actual grotesque models, obviously. Buy
No.
something else. Ogres, they're grotesque. They
Yeah.
work.
Ogres could be cool.
But it's got quite a wide range. So I feel like it's not the best army to invest in, Nick, for Frugal Hammer. Because they're also the models, like, there's a very big difference between a Talos and like a Raider full of like, so you can't really like kit bash around that. I don't think sometimes.
No. Yeah, just having the 3 different streams, yeah, makes it a bit difficult. Like, it kind of, yeah, you might be forced to buy more models because of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's not the best for like its width in some ways because
Yeah.
it's a little bit too specific. So the next up is Death Guard. So Death Guard. I think we've seen a new Demon Prince coming for Nurgle. Actually, that was
Really?
something that that's what we saw a post on that. And Death Guard are quite nice because, like, as someone who's currently collected Death Guard, in the like, it wouldn't be impossible for my some of my characters in the Death Guard range to also be characters in a Space Marine force. Chaos Space Marine force.
Mm.
Like, you know,
No.
I could paint them in fairly neutral colours, but I'm not. But I still could use them in a regular Chaos Marine force. Like the Nurgle Demon Prince, you could use in a regular Chaos Marine force, right? You could also use it in demons as well. So
Yeah,
I don't think.
yeah, Nurgle Demon Prince could be, yeah, Death Guard, Demons, and Chaos Space Marines. Yeah.
Yeah. And Death Guard
I
are
think it's,
also cheaper because of the magazine.
oh yes, yeah, yeah, what was it called? Conquest?
Conquest. So there's a lot
Conquest.
of them available on eBay, which is
Mm.
fun.
And they were an army that, so yeah, I think that's a really good point. Armies that came out in like the Start Collecting box sets, generally there's quite a lot of like easy to build ones that are floating around on eBay, and Games Workshop make easy to build ones of those as well, so they're potentially quite cheap as well because of that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them on the market.
Yeah, I think
Pick up
yeah.
cheapish.
Yeah, I think Deathwatch is a really good option. I really do, because there's lots of conversion opportunities. They were in the Start Collector box. There's loads already knocking around on eBay. There's loads from like Conquest magazine knocking about on eBay. As an example, I have like 2 Typhuses, maybe 3, like which is like whatever it is. It's pretty cool. That'd be a
Yeah,
good Demon
and
Prince.
they're quite a low model count army as well. Where you can at least make them low model count. You don't need to spam Plague Marines. Like you could have a couple of Plague Marine units, maybe them in some Rhinos and Death Guard, Death Shroud Terminators. Pretty cool. Eat up a lot of points. So you don't. They're kind of similar to Custodies in that point of view, where your point per pound ratio is pretty good.
Yeah, I'd also argue as well that a nice thing about it is when you buy Mortarion, as an example, or if you have someone awesome give you Mortarion, big love to Primark in the chat, you've got like a big beat stick model that's cool, and you could double him up with Magnus. I think it's actually probably the same conversation to have between between Thousand Suns and Death Guard, in that you can buy the big boy, and the big boy probably will always have loads of play. He'll never be terrible. He just sometimes might not be great. A bit like the Imperial Knight conversation.
Yeah, it's not. It's always going to be one of those models that Games Workshop want to be at least decent.
Yes.
So they're always going to. There's always. I feel like there's always going to be some effort from the rules writers to make it relevant in the game, somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, you can get an entire Poxwalker blob for free. You just visit every Games Workshop UK store for a painting tutorial.
Yes. So yeah. So you have Go
Go
to the store for the painting tutorial. Get one. Go away. Go in the corner. Put your glasses on. Go in again. Then go get your fake mustache. Then your fake nose. Then your trench coat, and just do that 30 times with 30 different disguises, and then you got a unit.
Easy. Easy peasy.
Easy.
Yeah. You can also do that, FYI, with Intercessors if you want to do that. Travel the globe collecting Intercessors. I wonder what like the petrol cost versus the trip works out.
Probably better driving. flying to Australia. Yeah, so fly to Australia, start there, and then hitchhike, taxi, ship back to England, going through every Games Workshop store during the painting tutorial season, collecting models. Then by the time you get home, you've got an army and probably enough to sell to make a little bit more money.
I honestly want two guys on a buddy road trip. This is a movie I want to film, and I want to see them go to every Games Workshop store in the country. Maybe they're on bicycles, and they just tour on bicycles to save money. Take
Yeah.
2 weeks off work, probably costs just as much. And then they just go and collect it. Each one just, I'll do the Marines, you do the Death Guard. They have that same conversation. Like, oh, you can walk away with it. I'll be like, oh, that's so awesome, thanks. And then they just come back with this.
I've got 100 of the same model.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But Death Guard and Thousand Suns also, I'd like to say, I think are good, especially as patrol detachments for Chaos. I think both Death Guard and Thousand Suns can bring something to the table in patrol detachments. So what I mean is you can have a small army of Death Guard or Thousand Suns. You can grow them into larger, your competitive army, but you can also cross-pollinate them quite nicely. Same with Chaos Marines.
Yeah, they're very superable.
Yes.
Super army to have for detachments. Yeah, so you might have you can have a big Chaos Space Marine army, just have a small portion of it in your other army. But then that does make you kind of want loads of other different ones. Like I've kind of got that. I've got my Chaos Space Marine / Imperial army. And then I've got a few Thousand Sun units, and I've got a few Death Guard units now. And then when I was writing this the other day, I was like, oh, if I just add a few extra Death Guard Terminators, maybe just add a few more, blah, 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 blah. And then before you know it, I was almost writing a new Death Guard army. So I had to kind of stop myself and like, look, I'm just having one detachment and that's it. That'll do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point you make, Nick, because you're a genius. So next up, so we've done Death Watch. That's the same as everything. Also, I think Death Watch are getting new Primaris, definitely. So don't buy Death Watch. Do you think they're getting Primaris? I think they're getting Primaris Death Watch.
Most likely, yeah, at some point. In the future, I'm sure they will.
Also, you
But
can just
they
make the Death
already
Watch out
have.
of your other stuff.
Yeah, just paint one of their shoulder pads silver. There you go.
Easy.
That's what you can do with your Legend Marines. Just paint the shoulder pad silver and make more Death Watch. 'Cause Death Watch are pretty good.
Yeah. Next up, Gene Stealer Colts. It's a big no from me on collecting the Gene Stealers for Frugal Hammer. What do you think?
Is that because they're just really expensive? I think they're pretty safe in terms of like a model range. So they've got good longevity, but they're just really expensive as a model range. But they're not that good at the minute. But I'm sure when their next Codex revision comes around, whenever that is, they'll probably. But yeah, I don't think Games Workshop know how to make the army work how they want it to.
Yeah, I don't think it works how they. I also don't think it works for the new edition. But I also think that they have a ton of models. As someone who previously collected Gene Stealer Colts in 8th and was super excited, I was like, yes! And then I played them and they just were functionally terrible. They have a very unique place in the meta because as an army, unlike when we talk about Death Guard, so Death Guard don't have like particularly good long-range shooting. They've got the Plague Burst Crawlers, which are good, but their book doesn't contain a lot of long-range shooting units, unlike if you go to Space Marines, you'd be like Predators, the new Gladiator tank, Thunderfire cannons, like pick a thing, right? Like they've got like a variety of options. The good thing about the Marine book is it's got loads of options, but the bad thing about the Marine book is some of them are terrible for a long time. In Death Guard, it's slightly different in that they don't have lots of, and Thousand Suns as well, is they don't have a lot of long-range options. Therefore, you're kind of locked into the units that they have, and if those units aren't good, then you've got a lot of bad stuff, basically. But with Gene Stealer Colts, they don't have anything that's like tough. Like they don't have like Grotesques or Taloses or Death Shroud Terminators. They are.
I mean, they've got the what they call the Aberrants. They're probably their toughest unit, but they just got like they got hit with the nerf pack too many times.
Yeah, but they're not comparable to like the tough units. I wouldn't say.
No. But they've just said they're the toughest thing they have, and yeah, they're not on the same level as like a Grotesque or Talos.
Yeah, and Gene Stealer Cult makes a good point as well. Primark says Gene Stealer Cult is the sort of army where you build 120 infantry, and then Games Workshop changes which is the best weapon.
Yeah, or invent blast weapons.
Also that. Also that. All right. So G Silicotes is a no from me. The models are ace, but I think you're just buying yourself into a rules problem. Because I think the problem, G Silicotes will either be great or terrible. I think there's no way to make. Do you know what I mean about there's not the diversity of units in there? They've got a lot of units that are toughness 3. A lot.
Yeah, and I think that goes back. I think that goes to the design philosophy that Games Workshop have. So they have people who come up with concepts and artists, drawings, and then the model designers make cool stuff, and then they give it to rules writers. So unless the design concept people are coming up with an army that has like a good range of weapons and options, then the rules writer dudes are a little bit hamstrung by that. Whereas it probably would be better to design an army on paper first and then go, here are concept guys, make cool stories and visuals for these units, rather than the other way around, because then you wouldn't have this problem with G's to the cults where they've got loads of cool stuff, but it all kind of does similar things and doesn't have enough diversity to be a Swiss Army knife army and have lots of tools. Just kind of has loads of little tools.
I'd agree with that. So I think we've done. Well, we haven't done, but we've talked around all of the chaos, and we've talked about all of. We've included Thousand Sons with Death Guard because I think it's the same situation really with Death as Thousand Sons. Is you pick up Morty, that's cool. He'll always be okay. And then Thousand Sons have got some great characters and units that you can kind of jump in between and around. Their Terminators are good. Their infantry is good. So you've got like a lot of options. You don't quite have you don't have as many like demon engines and stuff, but you got a lot of sorcerers. And like Nick said, you could kit bash a load of those sorcerers if you really wanted to. And do the same with the demon princes. So you can have a really fun time. Also with Frugal Hammer, Thousand Sons, I really do think that. The other thing, but then now I'm going to get on to like the thing that I think makes the most sense, which is all of the Xenos races, Nick. So I don't think Eldar makes a lot, but I think things like Orcs and Tau are really viable Frugal armies because you can kind of like finish those collections.
Yeah.
But problematically, they also have really wide books where there's a load of crap.
Yes. But if you're jumping in now, you can ignore all that crap. You don't need to finish your collection.
Yeah. Well, what's nice is if you were just jumping into Orcs or just jumping into Tau, you could buy the what's good now.
Yeah.
And then the next time you move on your collection is when there's the next what's good. Depends how fast that race is, right?
Yeah, well, I kind of tried to get ahead of the curve. Like before the Orc Codex came out, I started building my Orc army. I made a load of Burner Boys, thinking, okay, they're not very good at the minute in the index. I'm sure the new Codex will make them better, and it didn't. And then the new Psychic Awakening, maybe they'll make Burner Boys better here, and they didn't. So you might be waiting a long time for that. So maybe it's better just to not, like you said, Rob, buy what's good now, and then buy the stuff that gets good when it gets good.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to do that, but I think if we're talking about Frugal Hammer, if you're picking up stuff cheaply, like on eBay, there's a gamble there where if you're waiting for stuff to get good, then the price is just going to go up if you're buying it from eBay and things like that.
Also, Orcs is the kit basher's dream.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
When you're talking mech guns, there's a great YouTube video for like how to turn just like a regular truck into like 5 mech guns. And also, it's meant to be, as Yes Meatballs says in what can only be described as a succinct way, Orcs are good for frugality because you can just glue a bit of cornflakes, pack it onto a model, and change it to a better unit.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me.
Or get some crystals, glue them together, and call them a mech gun.
Yeah,
but then
don't do that.
Hated by the rest of the world for it.
Yeah, by all of us. Yeah, so Orcs are really good. Really good. Better so than Tau in lots of ways, because you can kit bash so many of the stuff into being different things. And also, like, the difference between an Orc Nob and an Orc Nob in Mega Armor is just your imagination in some cases.
Yeah.
And also what weapons they have. And Nick, you brought up Orc planes earlier. But honestly, if you tried to point out the difference between a burner bomber and a Dakka jet to me, I would struggle.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's just the weapon options, isn't it? Like that's all it is.
And I reckon you could just
And
put
then
all of them on one plane and be done.
yeah, yeah,
Today
yeah.
this
That's
is a
true.
burner bomber. Today this is a Wasbomb blaster jet. Tomorrow the world. So I think you can Frugal hammer up some planes pretty easy.
Yeah,
So I think orcs are a great option for that. Uh, and
defo.
then,
And
oh god.
you could just buy a stomper, and that's half your army.
And who knows if it'll ever be good or not? It can only get better. This is buying a terrible stock and hoping long-term
Yeah,
investment on the stomper. There are probably some
yeah,
stompers available on eBay now to buy. Oh my god, we should so do the stock section of a book. Like new Codex coming out, what's the stock of
yeah.
the units that's good? Um, then you've got, so that's orcs. Tau's a little bit more complicated because there's quite a lot of units in Tau, some of which just generally don't seem to see play. But it's quite obvious what Games Workshop do want to see play, and they obviously want to see all the battlesuits see play.
Yeah, they want to see battle suits. Yeah, defo.
Um, so they're quite good because unless they add more battlesuits, you're safe with the battlesuits, I think.
Mm, yeah, I think you're safer in for battle suits, but I think I wouldn't necessarily invest in a Tau army now because I feel like they'll get a codex relatively soon, and they kind of had a play style before during eighth, which was sort of sit in a blob with like broadsides or riptides, and now they're kind of with the new primaries and secondaries, they're gonna have to move around the board. So the play style's changed a little bit, so different things are in vogue, like all the tanks, hammerheads, and more battle suits, but more mobile. But then when the codex comes around again, that all might change again. They might bring out a new unit that's better or change how things work and points or nerfs or buffs or whatever. So you just don't know what's going to happen with that codex. So I think it's because their playstyle is kind of flip flopped a little bit. I think I'd be a bit hesitant to invest in a Tau army right now.
Okay,
Personally.
yeah, okay. I think that's fair points. I think that they're also a confusing army for new people at the start, really, to go through and work out what it is you want to play with in some ways. So that's tough for that. Crude meta, yeah, no, not crude is
No
the
creep
problem
meta.
because I'm
No
sure there'll be,
system.
if there is going to be new Tau, it'll either be new crude or new battle suits, right? Um,
Yeah, I do. I do hope that they give Crew some love again.
mm, yeah, I agree with that.
That'd be nice.
It'd be fun. I'd like to see all of those like conquered worlds get some models,
Yeah.
but that does mean that you have to buy those new models, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is there a stomper on eBay? Hilarious. Uh, so now Tyranids, Nick.
Tyranids.
Super frugal kit bashable.
Mhm.
Because you're like, here's a monster. I want to put it together. Problem with the Tyranids is you're never really quite sure what's good. And also, there's a lot of hordes that you got to buy.
Yeah. But
And
you could
that's
just go. You can
expensive.
go monster heavy though, and still have a good time with that kind of list. So you could do it relatively cheaply from that point of view. Just ignoring the hordes altogether. Like orcs, I suppose you can do it with orcs as well. You could ignore boys and just have more elite units with orcs as well. But I think with Tyranids, you can do it pretty well. We're just ignoring the bodies, just going for big monsters. Like the Hive Tyrant spam used to be a thing, and just have Ripper Swarms as your troops. There you go.
You could do. I just think you're also spending a lot of like, for points for pounds. If we compare it to Custodies, if you go for a lot of monsters, like you say, it's viable. Or even like Tyranid Warriors. Not that I think you ever saw many of those. Or Hive Guard. Like you can do them fairly elite. I guess if you really wanted to. Um, what's interesting, as soon as we move from Marines, it doesn't matter what you paint any of these things. That's the other part
No.
as well. So there's loads of options in there to just paint stuff as you want. Um,
Hmm.
but they are pretty much what they are, the Gribbly monsters. So you have to, if you're going to buy 3 monsters, they have to be those 3 monsters. It's quite hard to kit bash those because they're pretty
Mm.
big. Um,
Yeah, you can't like kit bash. Well, I suppose you could kit bash a Hive Tyrant out of a Carnifex kit. I think it's doable. Carnifex kit's magnetizable. The warrior kit's pretty magnetizable. I think you could make a lot of the stuff out of the warrior kit. Like I think you could make Raveners out of warriors. You could probably make Hive Guard out of warriors. You might not necessarily be able to take it to a Games Workshop tournament, but if you're just playing it with your mates or like independent events, if you put enough effort into your kit bash on a warrior to make it into a Hive Guard, I think you could do that. So I think there's some frugal potential in the kit bashing.
So without diving into any of the other codexes, that is pretty much everything for Frugal Hammer. And some thoughts, and I'd obviously I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts about it all. But has anything kind of popped up during the conversation, Nick, that you've taken away? As a non-NID player, they could tell me that they are whatever they want them to be. I have literally no idea what the differences between those bugs are. Also, the names, like, this is an Exocrine, this is a Tyrannofex. You're like, okay, this is an Exocrine. I'm like, sure, man, whatever you want, like, let me know.
There's an element of trust there, isn't there?
Oh, so Arkry wants to talk about Grey Knights and Sisters, but the Grey Knights fit into the Marines category, I think. No, I suppose they're enough of their own, maybe.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Thousand Suns or Nurgle. I think in Thousand Suns and Nurgle, I think they're a faction that you can invest in, knowing that Games Workshop will give them some love every now and then. Not as much as Marines will get. Marines will get the most love, but and I think factions like Tyranids and Orcs, I think will get possibly the least love.
Oh, fuck.
But I think Grey Knights, Thousand Suns and Death Guards, because they're Space Marines, but not normal Space Marines. I think they'll get a decent amount of love every now and then. I think Grey Knights could be getting. I think it'd be interesting to see whether Grey Knights ever actually get Primaris Marines or not. Well, they're kind of secret, aren't they? Grey Knights, they're kind of not really known about.
Yeah, that was going to be my argument, actually. I expect Primaris Grey Knights at some point, so I maybe wouldn't invest in them. We did also miss one off, so we need to come back. This isn't finished yet. But I also, I think I've checked out Egbert. There's a link in the chat, Nick, to a £35 stomper called Egbert.
Oh.
He looks fucking awful. Yeah, I'll describe it to the podcast listeners. It is... Okay, now I know what it is. It is a as the feet. It's two rhinos. They look like chaos rhinos are the feet, and then the main body is made from a Necron. What's it called?
Monolith.
A monolith, and then it's just got some random claw.
Grabby arm coming out the top.
Grabby arm. And it looks fucking outrageous. But it's some quality Frugal Hammer. That's only 36 quid. Yeah. Like, the parts of that are more than 36 quid.
Yeah. For
36 quid, that'd be pretty kick-ass terrain.
I mean, he's not finished painting it. I wonder what... He must have lost motivation for the army. Sadly.
Maybe he's like, this stomper will never be good.
He's realised... Oh, this is so good. Maybe I can just make a profit out of it and make two more.
He's just printing them at home. He's just making them. To be fair, it's pro-painted. Aren't two rhinos already the price of that? Lol. You are making money. This is a bargain.
Yeah, just buy that, rip the rhinos off.
You got two rhinos.
Yeah. And give the monolith to your Necron player, mate.
Yeah, you're smashing it. Sorry. Sisters of Battle, though, that's the next one. They're expensive. They are expensive. But they're in that Grey Knights category as well, where they're kind of like an additional army. And rules-wise, I think that they could get left behind quickly. Because they're not one of the main factions, right? So I think that they're they could get side-eyed sometimes, just get left. Chapter Proof comes out, and it's like, what? All the sister players are like, what about us? It's like, oh, we don't give a shit about you. We've sold you the box. We're good.
Yeah. They've had a bit of time in terms of rules development with the beta codex and all that kind of stuff. They'll probably get left alone for a while now. Points increases or decreases, I think, is what you can expect for them for the next couple of years or whatever.
Well, Final Cookie doesn't agree. He says Sisters are getting a big push in the marketing. They are in that opening codex, in that opening trailer. So maybe they're just really trying to push. They're not doing female Space Marines, but they're like, these are the women in the hobby. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So that's Sisters. I think Sisters. Would I buy Sisters? I don't think I'd buy Sisters. I don't think they just feel like a side project. Do you know what I mean?
I think they're quite expensive as a range.
Yeah, they are also very expensive. They are also very expensive, and they can't really be used as anything else. They are what they are, right?
Yeah, they don't. They don't swing both ways. There's no chaos versions of Sisters of Battle.
No, no.
Yes, they are. They are what they are.
But I would enjoy the triggered bloke who's playing with them being like, "They're heretical women Marines!" Ah! You're a fun guy. I know that guy. So the last one, we did miss one. Holy hell, the Necrons.
Can't believe we missed the Necrons.
Maybe
we missed them because they are 100% the faction that you should always invest in. So we just assumed that everyone would be buying them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Necrons are in an interesting place because they have such a large new model range, and they've obviously also got a new book coming out that we can't really talk about where their power is going to be, or also the efficiency or effectiveness of those units. And some of those units, like Silent King, for instance, maybe the Silent King is like a must purchase in the competitive build, for example. Or some of those new units are like some must buys, if you wanted to take the competitive versions. But you obviously can't guess that now. But once the book is out, I think that it's fairly safe to buy the units that are in that book that are good. Because I think you won't see anything for Necrons for like 3 years.
No. Well, I mean, if there might be... Well, Admech got a new book, didn't they? During 8th edition, and they got some new models then with the Codex, and then later in the Psychic Awakening they got a second wave of models. So we could see a Codex with new models, and then later on more new models come out. Or
I don't think so. It's a pretty complete range, I think, that they're putting out.
But what they could do is they could re-release like flayed ones, with better flayed ones, or I don't know, different other units might get new models, but I don't think there'll be that many units in the range now that need new models, because we've seen new destroyers, different types of destroyers. I think flayed ones definitely need a plastic kit. That's probably about it. So yeah, I think they are a safe bet to invest in. Definitely if the Codex is good.
Agreed. Diawag is blowing everyone's mind. He says, my Necron army, it definitely isn't frugal, because I bought 20 old Caesarus models to make 20 warriors with crab legs, for instance. So that is the opposite of Frugal Hammer.
Wow. That's a cool looking unit though.
Yeah, you should definitely put some pictures online and send them to us.
Yes.
It'd be cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that the AdMech one is an interesting thing, talking about the waves of releases. The AdMech, they literally just released the transport because I think they designed the transport and then they just brought the transport release all the way forward. They were like, this needs to be made in 2 years. Because you got to remember, like, the miniatures guys make the models and then they're like sat there for like 2 years sometimes longer. Yeah. And they're like, while they're doing the codexes and the stories and everything else. So, like, there sometimes is like a 2 or 3 year gap. I think they just saw the AdMech transport. They were like, the rules guys were like, we're bringing that forward. Doesn't need a story to it. There's a transport. Float your dudes forward because they suck. Off you go.
You said and we listened. Here's a transport.
So we haven't seen a Necron Pariah model, but I think the Necrons will be.
That's true.
I think once the book is out, they'll be set in stone for 3 years at least, which is good. And I would assume the Silent King is going to get the kind of magnet. Like, look at Gulliman. Gulliman's had nerf after nerf after nerf, but Gulliman is still good.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to make there's. I don't think they'll ever make those character models not good. I guess the same is true for Belisarius Cawl. He's still he was good in the last edition, the 2 editions ago. He's just good. It'll be good the whole way through.
Yeah, those character models, they always overshoot them. They always tend to make them really, really good and then rein them in slowly. Whereas other units, they probably tend to make a bit more of a tentative approach with them, where they don't always make them too good, but character models they definitely do.
Yeah, they always do. So it's a good way of investing. So I think the Silent King will be one as well. We've also had a suggestion from Circon, and I also saw him subscribe earlier, so thanks to him, that we should do the opposite of Frugal Hammer, which is just insane money hammer. I'm not sure what that is. I think maybe it's
Death
just...
Doctor Krieg.
Could be. What about just placing a Nurgle on top of... a Nurgling, sorry, on top of like an Intercessor, and each one of those is like a Plague Bearer, or something like that.
Yeah, or you get the new Intercessor kit, which is multi-part. The multi-part combat Intercessor. Put a Nurgling in where the head is. Make them into Plague Marines, and then buy I don't know, some other kit just for the knives to replace
Yeah,
the bolt gun and chainsaw with knives.
yeah. I like Final Cookie's suggestion of just solid gold custodies.
Yeah. Melt down all your gold and mix it into your paints to paint onto your custodies.
That's also
Or
good.
or is he suggesting getting them cast completely out of gold?
I think so. What
Yeah.
about using Archeon, the suggestion from MJ Pegasus as Bloodthirsters, or just Archeon as a Demon Prince?
Mm.
That's good.
Or just Arcana as the champion of a unit. Or yeah.
Well, yeah. So there's a thing. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed Frugal Hammer, and we'd like to hear your Frugal Hammer stories. And I think it's good talking about it because sometimes we all go through different phases in our life. Someone might be in the hobby now who at one point was minted and now has got no money. Or similarly, you might be in the position right now where you've got no money and in the future you're going to be minted. Or you might just always have been minted. Great work. Proud of you. Yeah, you're kicking ass. And I guess the real point is we all have different circumstances sometimes. But
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a negative to try and think about what is a good purchase in the hobby.
No, definitely not. No.
Because that's obviously a really good way of like approaching those purchases like as you go forward. Okay.
Yeah, because like an army is a long-term investment. Like you'll want to have it for at least a couple of years or even a lifetime. So you may as well think about it to get the most out of your money.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's why like the things like Orcs, Death Guard, Thousand Suns, Necrons, they kind of like anything that it just isn't those Marines basically. I think we probably could have done this in like 10 minutes. It's just been like, don't do Marines, do anything else but Marines, kind of as a process.
Well, I think what's your top Frugal Hammer army? I think I know mine, and I think it's Orcs because Orcs are the best, and
That's true.
You can they're the most kit bashable, the most forgiving for kit bashers.
Yeah, I'm looking at my yeah, but can you though? Like, so what can you really even kit bash? Like, I'm looking at the foot. If they had bases, like if they used like trucks on bases, but I don't even want to run a truck to be honest. I don't know. Like, I think that maybe you could just use looters and also pretend they're burners and also pretend they're flash kits. You could probably just give them like 8 different guns. Do you know what I mean? And they could just be all those things for different games. So maybe they're fairly kit bashable. I'm trying to think what you would take. Gorkanaut, Morkanaut.
Yeah, Gorkanaut and Morkanaut are kit bashable. All the tanks are kit bashable. Like you can, like I've been eyeing up as a potential. Like I'm either going to make my own battle wagons, like I've made my Chinooks or planes, or I was thinking about if I can just snipe some really cheap tanks off eBay, like a really battered, old, messed up Land Raider would make quite a cool battle wagon, I think. So you can even just turn your old, like if you've got an old, like all the Space Marine players who are going to get their entire vehicle section invalidated by the new Primaris could just all of a sudden become Orc players and kit bash all those tanks into Orc tanks.
That's true. That's true. I think the suggestion in the chat, the one that seems to be convincing me the most, is probably going to be. I think it's Chaos generally, because I think the good thing about Chaos is basically you just take anything else. It's a kind of the Orc conversation, right, where you just fuck something up, but it's like you don't even have to like. You could just buy you could buy regular. You could find some like dryads that someone's like fucked up. like, and it's on eBay for like £5, and then a bunch of Marines that are on eBay for like nothing as well. Just bang all those bits all over it. Start a new base spray like down, and you like, you know, you stick all the tree elements on it. He's like, there's a bunch of Nurgle Marines that are done quite easily. And I think you can do the same with most of it, I reckon. I reckon probably Chaos is actually a really fun one as well, because you could just get really adventurous with it.
Yeah, Nurgle's definitely a very kit bashable one. Like, tentacles are pretty easy to make out of green stuff, so you can replace just a normal Marine's arm with a tentacle. And all of a sudden he's a Plague Marine.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Sinesh, I mean, Sinesh doesn't really have any like physical like claws. Is usually Sinesh, claws and tails. You can stick them on fairly well.
Boobies.
Yeah. You can paint them red, and it like literally it's red. It's corn, easy. Like what is corn? Red. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. Like
Skulls everywhere.
yeah. So I'm gonna go for chaos. Can I go for the whole faction? Just chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the most probably translatable. I think to Frugal Hammer. All right, well, it's been a pleasure, sick boobs to you Marines, exactly. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Nick, and everyone in the Twitch chat.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good chat.
Yeah, great
Can
chat.
I give someone a shout out?
Please do.
I'm going to give Baron Saturday another shout out because I played him yesterday, so I just want to shout out our game. We had a really good game. He took his elite combat Blood Angels, and I took my Horde combat Orcs. We had like combats turn 1. It was a really fun game, really close game. It was his first game of 9th edition. It ended up a 75-73 to me, so I snuck it by a few points. The last couple of turns were really interesting because in my turn 5 I bombed in to try and kill as many characters as I could. Killed 2, but then he also cleaned up my characters last turn, so like we both just mutually annihilated all of our characters each. Meganob's got stuck into a Sanguine Guard in the background picture behind me. You can see it. So they got a jump and then charge in the Sanguine Guard, killed 1, but then the remaining 4 just absolutely murdered my entire unit. But it was a really awesome game, so just give him a shout out for that. And also Gozzy.
Of course, Gozzy. K-Dread played 40k today and won due to secondaries by killing 5 characters. Dubgun, thank you very much. Fuck you, buddies. Thank you to Sircon as well. It's been lovely talking to you all. Thank you especially to Final Cookie. Said we've been doing really well recently, Nick, so I'm proud of us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, proud of us. If anyone wants to leave us a review on iTunes, on the podcast, or any podcasting app, let us know, and I'll shout you out on the next show, which is only tomorrow. Or just leave some comments, and I'll also shout you in on YouTube, and I'll shout you out as well. Like, shout out that guy. Yeah. Right, anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you to everyone on Patreon as well. If you also subscribe on Patreon, you'll also get a shout out. It's just shout outs for days is my new thing. That's my new thing, Nick. Yeah.
A really good thing that I think maybe we could sort in the future, that another stream that I watch quite a lot does, Back to Warcraft. So after each of their streams, they do like an outro, but then they have like a title scene, you know, from the end credits of a movie. But it's just a scroll of all their Patreon names. That'd be quite cool to sort out.
Let's do that. Easy peasy. But yeah. And especially thank you to those Patreon guys. Podcast guys, though, stay hydrated, look after yourself. And also, everyone on Twitch chat, you guys are great.
Cheers, guys.
My shout outs to all of you. You're the best part of the Honest Wargamer. Fuck you, buddies. Have a great day.